was implied in the trailer for his series, Moon Knight's life often feels like a waking nightmare due to his dissociative identity disorder and his connection to Khonshu. Join me as we revisit some of the most horrifying moments in his life as we count down the top 10 scariest Moon Knight moments. Number 10. Becomes heroes. And I'm not just talking about Moon Knight here. You see, there was a time Moon Knight was actually a part of the Avengers. Well, the Secret Avengers. But still, afterwards in his own 2011 series, he decided to go off to LA. Moon Knight actually ended up turning his life into a television series, or, well, his early life. But while that was going on, he was called back into action by some of his fellow Avengers, who said they needed his help with something. Problem was, the Avengers who appeared to be here weren't actually there. Instead, it was revealed that they were hallucinations of Moon Knights, who actually also ended up becoming them in a way. They became personas that manifested within him, and which he at times adopted himself, fighting and actually acting under the guise and mantle of those heroes. The heroes that he imagined and which became a fractured part of his psyche were Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man. Number 9. Death. That first death of Mark Spector in both versions is a quite disturbing scene. The story goes that after being betrayed by Raul Bushman and defending Marlene Alraine, daughter of archaeologist Peter Alraine, whom Bushman had killed, Mark was seemingly left dead in the desert. He was brought in to rest under the idol of Khonshu inside, or perhaps in front, of an ancient tomb. Despite being declared dead with no discernible pulse or heartbeat, somehow Mark made a miraculous recovery, and it is heavily implied in that first telling of the tale in issue number 1 of the 1980 Moon Knight series that his recovery is actually thanks to the spiritual and supernatural. In the 2016 series retelling of this moment, Khonshu actually speaks directly to Mark and offers him life or death. When Mark chooses life, Khonshu then reveals that as a result of his gift, Mark will actually act as his hands, his eyes, his vengeance. Very eerie stuff. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want even more Moon Knight lists, you know that there is much more to talk about. Be sure to let us know and we will give that to you. Hit that like button, friends. Do it. Number 8. Unkillable Moon Knight. One of the scariest things about Moon Knight in general as a character is that he's so completely relentless and seemingly unstoppable. It makes you question if he's really human and sometimes if he's even real. Moon Knight has at times questioned whether or not Khonshu is real or a hallucination, and he's also wrestled with the personas residing within him as he tries to navigate the truth about who he is as a person. There was also a time that he even claimed he wasn't real, messing with the minds of readers and opponents alike. In issue number 2 of the 2014 Moon Knight series, Moon Knight is chasing down an opponent, being fired at continuously as he pursues. While he is grazed by one of the bullets, he also seems to impossibly dodge them otherwise, and this is as his enemy empties his clips right into him, pulling out a series of guns in an effort to hit and take out Moon Knight. The man he's after asks, "Why can't I hit you?" To which Mark replies, "I'm not real." Number 7. Mummified. Well, I mean, not fully mummified, organs still intact, but wrapped up like a mummy and the prisoner of Anubis for sure. This frightening moment comes from when Mark Spector had reluctantly answered the call of Khonshu once more after choosing to retire. Coming out of retirement, he felt compelled to follow an urge, almost like a telepathic pull, which led him to priests of Khonshu, who armed him for the coming battles after Mark had sworn off being Moon Knight and sold his Khonshu idol statue. This puts him into direct conflict with Anubis, who literally had him confined in mummy wrap as he threatened to blast him with laser-like eyes, defeating Khonshu's avatar and killing Mark Spector in the process. At least, that was his plan. Fortunately, Mark did escape with some help from Khonshu, but unfortunately this also meant that Mark was now indebted to Khonshu once more. Number 6. Facing Morpheus. Morpheus, once known as Robert Markham, was a patient of Peter Alraine's, not to be confused with the other Peter Alraine Sr., who's Marlene's dad. This Peter Alraine is Peter Alraine Jr., who is Marlene's brother. Robert himself was struggling with a viral infection which affected his very DNA, and decided to seek medical treatment. After Peter prescribed him an experimental drug, he became mutated. His appearance changed to something quite monstrous, and he found himself unable to sleep, and he also had powers. His powers were mainly psionic and also allowed him to control and interact with dreams of those who slept. At one point, he also managed to be able to exert control over minds that were awake as well. This monstrous being proved a challenging foe for Moon Knight to face, and just the idea and appearance of him could haunt you in a lingering way. kinda like how a horror film does. Number 5. Daddy Khonshu. One of the creepiest visits I think Mark has gotten from Khonshu is still the first one, especially as this visit only highlights the fact that we're not really sure at this point if Khonshu is completely real or simply a manifestation of Mark's psyche, like his other identities. Khonshu first visited Mark when he was just a boy, and his father was meeting with a specialist about getting Mark treatment for his dissociative identity disorder, which Elias had noticed manifesting through Mark talking to seemingly imaginary friends. Makes me actually wonder if that is a sign of DID or not. I had a lot of imaginary friends when I was a kid, and is having imaginary friends an early sign of the potential to develop something like DID? I had like 3 or 4 of them growing up myself. As Mark listens to the door to hear what his father and the doctor are saying to one another, he's approached by someone who turns out to be Khonshu. Khonshu doesn't just say hi or even boo, but instead disturbingly claims that he is Mark's true father. Oh boy. Number 4. Branding. And not in a marketing way. Well, I guess it's kind of a form of marketing actually. Really disturbing form of marketing perhaps. This revelation comes to us from the 2006 volume of Moon Knight, which is a lot more edgelordy from what I've seen of it personally. Here Moon Knight takes to marking his victims by carving a crescent moon into their forehead. Reminiscent of DCEU Batman branding his criminals with the bat symbol, but a lot more gruesome, because you're literally carving something into their forehead. This really showcases how Moon Knight uses fear and intimidation to fight against criminals, and also feels that he is so in the right that he gets to decide who should live or die, or be like permanently branded. This is definitely a version of the character, or more a time in Moon Knight's life where he really didn't seem to care about killing. I mean, I know Moon Knight kills when he needs to kill, but there's pretty much no remorse shown here either. And usually Moon Knight does kinda try to not kill when he can. To see Moon Knight mark people's foreheads with crescent moons, check out issue 16 of the 2006 Moon Knight series, where he does quite a bit of it. It's pretty dark. Number 3. The Hatchet Man. Being that Moon Knight is such a dark figure himself, he also faces off against a lot of dark and violent rogues. Very similar to Batman actually. Dealing with a lot of criminals who are much more twisted, dark, and brutal. One such villain was the Hatchet Man, who initially Mark believed was none other than Randall Spector, his own brother. In fact, when the Hatchet Man is defeated in issue 18 of the 1978 Hulk series, Mark is pretty convinced that it was his brother. Of course, I'm pretty sure his brother shows up later alive, so I'm not really sure if this was actually true or just a coincidence, or how this fits into the greater continuity. Either way, before he is defeated, the Hatchet Man's MO was using an axe, a hatchet, to slay innocent nurses as they headed home later after their night shifts. And the reason Randall was suspected as the Hatchet Man by Moon Knight was because of a past incident where he killed a woman named Lisa with a meat cleaver, which Mark himself recalled. Axe-wielding serial killers, that is some scary stuff. It should also be noted that Marlene, Mark's love interest, is used as bait in the plan, and when everything goes sideways, she ends up hacked multiple times with the axe, putting her in a life-threatening condition. Number 2. Dark Secrets. Probably the moment that resulted in Mark developing a dissociative identity order to begin with. This one comes from his childhood. Mark's father, Elias, emigrated from the United States when he was younger with his own mother in the hopes of escaping persecution for being Jewish. A family friend and rabbi joined them and assisted them along the way by the name of Yitz Perlman. The problem was that Yitz Perlman wasn't really Yitz Perlman at all, but a man impersonating him who had deserted the German World War II forces and was also looking to escape himself. The fake Perlman, it turned out, was actually named Ernst, and was also a serial killer who preyed on Jews specifically, or more enjoyed that. That was more the thing that he liked the best. Which young Mark one day happened to find out by accident. He managed to escape Perlman's clutches, only for Perlman to disappear afterward, once more escaping justice. Number 1. Face Off. If you're familiar with Moon Knight and Mark Spector, then you know that Raoul Bushman is one of his greatest enemies in the comics. Bushman in the comics is the one who basically is responsible for Mark becoming Moon Knight in the first place. At least, that's how it initially went. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that was added after, but initially, he was a big part of that. He was the one who seemingly killed Spector, who was then laid to rest beneath an idol of Khonshu and miraculously recovered, becoming his avatar. This was after Bushman betrayed the group that he and Mark were both a part of, looking to take the riches of one of their expeditions for himself, and threatening the life of the woman whom Mark would later fall in love with after killing her father. At one point, Raoul and Moon Knight face off against one another in a brutal fight, where despite getting both of his knees shattered, Moon Knight still managed to defeat Bushman, and even then removes his face using one of his crescent moon darts. What are some of your favorite terrifying moments from the Moon Knight comics and from his life story in general? Which moments are you hoping to see explored in the Disney Plus live series? Do you think the series will skew more horror or more action-adventure? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.